a French-Canadian character study about a woman obsessed with a high-profile serial killer case. What does that have to do with Baroque music? Well, if you take a listen to the film score, you'll see what I mean immediately. Now, before I get into it, I will say, spoilers ahead. I don't think that spoilers will ruin any enjoyment you get out of this film if you choose to see it. I will say it's a very disturbing film. I don't recommend it to everybody. There's no gore or violence shown other than blood on the walls, but I was squirming in my seat regardless for the implications the film made. That said, I want to talk about how the music in the film, in particular its borrowings from the Baroque era, spoil the movie from the get-go, telling us a lot about Kellyanne, the protagonist, and her character. But before we begin, I have to make sure that everyone watching is aware of what a Passacaglia is. In a Passacaglia, we're dealing with a ground bass, something around which the rest of the piece will mutate, if you will. The initial ground bass, of course, itself may mutate, as seen in, for example, the famous C minor Bach. But it will always be in some way based on the original. There are other things to know about the Passacaglia, such as that it's usually in 3/4, although in the case we'll be discussing today, it is not. But that's besides the point. There are many Passacaglias that are not in 3/4. Take, for example, RV 157 by Vivaldi. Regardless, it's not a requirement. And again, there are more things to say about the Passacaglia. For the purposes of this video, all you need to know is that we have a ground bass, everything revolves around it. The bigger question is, why does Dominique Plante use the Passacaglia? Well, let's take a look at Kellyanne. She's a sort of fungal character. She works underground, spreading her mycelia around. And she has these flashy, short-lived moments. For example, when she dresses as a victim, the very one whose footage of her murder is lacking, and therefore impeding the trial. She dresses as her. But that's the head of the mushroom peeking out from underneath. And it's clever, because when security removes her, and when her agency lets her go because of her antics, everyone thinks they've gotten rid of the mushroom, but underneath there's a whole network that is her. The head is not all there is to the organism. It's just that which we can see. It's clear she enjoys the anonymous influence she has over others, leaving the USB on the mother's nightstand while she sleeps, using the name the Lady of Shalott online. She is intentionally visualized as a ghost, in reflections, behind blurry screens. And this is why the music's form is so crucial to her character. Everyone is like an upper part operating above the baseline, thinking they're independent. I've recently been teaching a friend music theory, and when I introduced the Passacaglia, she noted how the bassline seemed to just fade into the background. And that, to me, is a good way to describe Kellyanne's character. She fades into the background, but she really digs her claws deeper and deeper into the victim's parents' lives, into the murderer's life, into the trial, the court, justice. All the upper parts, all the other people believe they're moving independently, that they got rid of the mushroom, right? But really, they can't escape her influence. It's almost like she takes it as a challenge. You see her staring at the mother of one of the victims, the very victim she dresses up as, and watching her talk to the news, saying, "We see you," to the people who admire the killer in the trial. And while I wouldn't say she's an admirer, I do think that she is in that group that the mother is referring to.
Puis j'en profite, j'ai un petit mot à dire à ces groupies. Celles sur les forums en ligne, celles qui lui envoient des lettres d'amour, puis surtout celles qui hantent la salle d'audience à chaque jour. Ben, on vous voit. Puis vous êtes obscènes. Obscènes. Je peux pas croire qu'on vous laisse assister au procès à côté des familles des jeunes filles assassinées. Vous pourrissez nos vies. Vous crachez sur les tombes de nos filles. Vous devriez avoir honte.
She takes it as a challenge. She's like, "You don't see me. I have influence over you, and yet you don't see me, but I will show you I'm there." And in doing so, as dressing up as the victim, the whole time, as she's being dragged away, stares into the eyes of the serial killer. And he finally, because this whole time he's just been staring off into the distance, bored with the trial, he finally looks up and waves at her, and it's accompanied by these chilling screams. She smiles. A lot of people take this as, "Oh, he finally noticed me." I don't think that's it. I think that she feels that in that moment she's won. She's revealed an emotion in him. I believe earlier in the movie she says something along the lines of explaining to Clementine that she enjoys watching the emotional ones lose everything when she's playing poker. In this way, she exposes emotion in that supposedly soulless serial killer and establishes power over him. Because now she has what she needs. She has the motivation to destroy him, take everything from him. And she's not doing it out of benevolence. As some people, I believe, have suggested, I don't think she does it out of goodwill. I think that she does it because she sees an opportunity to win over another person, a new challenge, someone almost like her. And in eventually solving the case, by giving the mother the USB containing the murder of her daughter, the one she dressed up as, she destroys the mystery around that victim, what made her special in the public eye, and so takes that final thing from her that she could have, and then also destroys the mother by showing her the tape of her murder. Does the mother use it to end the trial? Yes. But then she's just killing two birds with one stone. She traumatizes the mother and ruins the life of the killer. She also wins against Clementine by showing her the murder of the two other victims and destroys Clementine's beliefs. She effectively dehumanizes everyone around her. So clearly the film criticizes sensationalism around acts of violence, but it goes deeper. It asks us whether people we view as outsiders, such as Clementine, who idolizes the serial killer, believes he's not innocent against all these obvious clues that he isn't, are we too different from them? Or people like Kellyanne, we ask, these people exist, how much influence do they have over us, despite the fact that we don't see them really? These anonymous people on the internet. Sometimes when I'm sharing these videos, I get these really rude, dismissive, and snobbish comments from anonymous people on the internet. And of course, these people aren't as bad as Kellyanne, right? But it makes you think, people who can act so cruelly to somebody on the internet, these are people in real life. These are people who affect people around them. The dark web exists in our world. Rude people on the internet who hurl hurtful insults at each other exist in the real world. They're not separate from their online selves. Kellyanne does not exist in a vacuum. By refusing to fully explain her motivations, the film asks us to confront the reality of her existence.
Tu sais, Kellyanne, il y a une affaire que je comprends pas. Pourquoi t'es là, toi? Bye, Kellyanne.
She is the killer of empathy. She is the film. She is the documentary on a streaming service that romanticizes the brutal murder of real people and the impact it had on real people. Clementine is not a bad person, despite her delusions. She's not a bad person. She's been manipulated by systems like Kellyanne. The people on the television, they are also part of a system that makes light, makes entertainment out of a case like the murder of the 3 victims. This is what the score communicates by having this underground baseline that determines what happens above. The upper parts are all restricted, despite their seemingly free movement, restricted by what they are allowed to do functioning around the baseline. I mean, effectively everybody forgot about the 2 other victims. Everyone's focusing on that last piece of information, the missing 3rd victim's tape. But Kellyanne shatters this and converts the victim to just another upper part in her Passacaglia. Finally, I want to talk about the instrumentation of the score. As the score progresses, I noticed that there is an increasing use of more modern instruments. We begin with the harpsichord, we end up with both the harpsichord and the piano. Eventually the harpsichord goes away and it's just the piano winning between them. I think this is an interesting choice because the harpsichord is associated with basso continuo, it's associated with improvisation, realization of the figured bass. But the piano, not so much. And that loss of improvisatory implications represents a loss of independence from Kellyanne that everybody in the film in some way experiences. Red Rooms is by far one of the most disturbing films I have watched ever. And there's really nothing disturbing in it other than the sounds and the philosophy that Kellyanne represents. Its usage of musical symbolism brilliantly shows us from the beginning who the character that the film studies is. And I haven't really seen many people talk about that. If you can stomach it, I recommend it.